I've got a question for you. What's your reading shame? What's the dirty little secret in your reading life? For me, it's this pile right here. Hi, I'm Ben. Welcome back to my channel where today we are talking about reading and shame. And you might be watching this thinking, what do you mean reading shame? I've never been ashamed of anything I've read. And if that's you, well, carry on as you are. Please do not let this be your introduction to reading shame. You're already nailing it, so protect your bliss. For the rest of us though, we've got piles just like these. The reason I'm talking about this is because if you are following the Read Good Challenge, my set of 12 prompts for your reading year, you'll know that June is Reading Shame Forgiveness Month. It's the chance to blow off the cobwebs of whatever's holding you back, dig out those skeletons that are in your reading closet and tackle them no questions asked. And that's how it should be, right? Reading what brings you joy. There should be no shame in reading something that you like. Shame is a ludicrous emotion to feel about reading. Well, unless you are that news anchor from Succession.
And this other one that came up, just to fend this off, have you ever read Mein Kampf? Yeah, a couple times, I guess. Couple times?
If you are participating in the Read Good Challenge and you're looking for something to read for June, you may be on the hunt for some inspiration. And so today I thought I'd share my 6 genres of shame. Actually, genres is a bad word because it's not really about genre. They're more like 6 flavours of shame that I've picked from my shelves. We'll start with something that I think haunts every reader, really, and that is the book that's been sitting on your shelf unread for the longest. This month is a chance to go and rescue those books. I had a quick look at my own shelves, and for me, I think there are 2 titles that stood out as ones that have been there forever. The first is one that is kind of in my usual reading wheelhouse, and that's The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. This won the Booker Prize in 1997. I think I picked it up in a charity shop quite a long time ago. I'm thinking like 15 years ago, and I still have not gotten around to it. Which surprises me because I only hear good things about this. I hear that the prose is absolutely beautiful, and I really should prioritise it at some point, especially because between the time that I bought this and now I've become much more interested in the Booker Prize and book prizes more generally. The other book is maybe a little bit different from my usual reading habits, and this harkens back to a time when I was a much more casual reader, and I think I'd read like the Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons, and I recognised that they weren't like the highest quality prose in the world, but I did enjoy the plots of those books, and I was looking for something to give me the same sort of thrills and excitement. And when I did some research online, I saw a lot of recommendation for RJ Ellory, and so I picked up his book A Quiet Belief in Angels, and you can see how long I've had this because the pages have become super yellowed. This still sounds great. I haven't been moved to like get rid of it or take it to a charity shop. I would like to read it one day. I think it's a pretty bog standard thriller actually about a murderer and people who try and uncover him and stop him from carrying on what he's doing. So maybe I'm holding out all this time for something that's not actually that special. If you have read this one though, I would love to hear if it is a good thriller. I actually bought this back when paperbacks in the UK were $7.99. That's how long ago it was. Our next flavour of shame are books that go outside of your comfort zone somewhat, outside of your usual reading habits. That may be reading romance if you're usually a literary fiction kind of reader, or maybe you read a lot of YA but you're interested in reading some thrillers. Lots of this I think comes down to marketing. Sometimes it can feel like a book isn't intended for us because the marketing suggests that it's intended for a completely different type of reader. But you should never let that get in the way of your enjoyment. For me, to be honest, I think I'm never going to be like a romance reader. I just don't get too much out of books that follow certain tropes. I don't find it comforting so much as frustrating, which is why I tend to focus on a lot of literary fiction. But something that I do want to read a little bit more of and that I should make time for is young adult fiction, because there's some really exciting young adult fiction out there. And a book that epitomises that for me is Impossible Creatures by Catherine Rundell. This was a book that won loads of prizes last year. It's been absolutely raved about. And so I picked up a copy of it right at the start of the year or right at the end of last year. And I intended to read it very soon after, but I just haven't gotten around to it. And so I really should make time for this sort of book. Diversify my reading, you know. The next source of shame are book series that you may have started and not finished. And that's fine, right? You don't have to finish every book series that you start. You might read the first book and it not really do it for you. And in that case, you're not obligated to carry on. But I personally have some series where I've read the first 2 books, thought they were okay, wanted to finish it all and just never gotten around to it. And as soon as there's a bit of a time window between me finishing the last book and starting the next one, I completely forget everything that's happened. And so it becomes a real barrier for me to carrying on. Two examples of that from my own shelves are both trilogies, actually, where I don't have all the books. The first is the trilogy that I don't actually know what the name of the trilogy is, but it starts with Wool by Hugh Howey. No idea where I've put Wool, but I do still have Shift, and I almost got rid of this in a recent unhaul, but someone said to me that it's a little bit like Severance, and so that really suddenly piqued my interest again. This series has obviously had a little bit more attention recently because it's been turned into an Apple TV series, and so more people are talking about it, more people are reading it. I am unsure if I will ever come back to it. I kind of like to. I did enjoy Wool. I don't think it was that spectacular. It was an interesting idea, interesting concept. But yeah, will I carry on? Not so sure. And the other series is the Southern Reach trilogy. So I have definitely read the first book and I own the second book. And I was kind of turned off it because Matt, my husband, read the second one and said he was a little bit bored by it. I also had the problem that I got these really cool editions that have like amazing cover art, and then they did a reprint and they changed it and it's very similar, but it has like the title of the book across the front instead of these cool illustrations. And so I could never track down the third one, and without the third one I didn't know if I wanted to read the second one. But maybe my attitude to all of this will change and I'll become a lot more enthusiastic, because Jeff Vandermeer has just announced a fourth book in the series that's coming out later this year. And in the US, at least, they're getting really beautiful reissues with amazing covers. Next, you might feel bad if you've not read enough or read certain canon books that relate to a certain part of your identity. Maybe you've got some heritage from a part of the world and you'd like to read more about that. Or maybe you've got a partner from another country and you'd like to learn more about their culture and heritage. For me, I think I'd like to read a lot more queer fiction. I own quite a lot, but I haven't often gotten around to reading it. And the one book I think that epitomizes my poverty in queer reading is that I have not read Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I think this is a cornerstone text for queer lives. I've heard this is beautiful and devastating, and I just really, really want to read it. It does help also that I've got this beautiful Everyman's Library edition, and when I first saw these, I was never too sure about them, but the more that I see them, the more I think they are just lovely. They've got ribbons in them as well. You can see I haven't read this because the ribbon's still tucked in. But yeah, I think this might be one that is leading the pack from this stack because I just feel so compelled to read it. Speaking of the literary canon, there are these books that it feels like everyone has read and everyone ought to read. For me, I still have not read Jane Eyre, and that is a source of shame. I do not know how I can call myself a reader having not read this book. Is there anyone else left on the planet who calls themselves a reader who has not read this book? It's very lonely living an heirless life, so if you also have not read Jane Eyre, please do tell me in the comments so that I can know that I'm not alone. But yeah, I mean, this is a classic, it's beloved. You don't need me to tell you what it's about. I just need to get on with reading it, really. Finally then, there are authors that I find it shameful not to have read yet. These are authors that I assume I will like. Authors that I have picked up a book that they have written. Maybe I've picked up two. Maybe I can't stop myself buying this author's books and then they sit on my shelves and I don't read them. Akwaeke Emezi, I feel so bad that I have not read these because I just think I'm going to love your work and I really, really need to get to it. Emezi is a particularly egregious example that I've done this for, but more commonly I do read one book by an author, really love it, expect I'm going to love their backlist, buy a load and then never read them. So Damon Galgut is sitting on my shelves. I've got a lot more Benjamin Myers to get through, Zadie Smith, Bernardine Evaristo. All of these authors I expect I will love, but I'm so distracted by new and shiny things that I don't turn to the backlists. Let me know if there are any authors sitting on your shelves completely unread. So that's a quick whistle-stop tour of my shame. This is all very tongue-in-cheek, obviously. There's nothing to really be ashamed of when it comes to reading. But I would love to hear what your reading shame is, what you might be picking up for the Read Good Challenge in June and Reading Shame Forgiveness Month. By the way, if this is the first time you're hearing about the Read Good Challenge, it's a super chilled reading challenge. There's just a prompt each month that's quite broad, so you can be quite flexible with it. And there is no obligation to do every single month. So if you want to join in right now, you're very welcome to. We've got a couple of hundred people over on the Storygraph taking part in the challenge, which kind of blows my mind, but it's been lots of fun so far. If you're interested to hear more, I'll link to a video where I explain all of the prompts in the description, and also link to the Storygraph challenge that you can hop onto. But yeah, I'd love to know what your reading shame is. Are there any of these flavours of shame that particularly resonated with you, or any additional flavours that I didn't cover? Do let me know in the comments. If you liked this video, please do hit like, and if you'd like to see more from me, then hit subscribe. But until next time, toodles.